Every generation has a moment where they come just to have some fun.
Atlanta is the mecca for black people in America.
It has multiple historically black colleges.
In the 80s,
we said, let's plan a picnic during spring break.
Let's call it Freaknik.
Freaknik was the greatest black gathering in America.
It was like an entry point into the black cultural experience.
To be able to be in the middle of the street, dancing, laughing, playing your music, it's a moment. The interstate, the highway, was a street party.
There wasn't even a word called twerking, it was just called booty shaking.
There wasn't no social media, barely had internet.
During Freaknik, stars start coming in. You would see Tupac, Goody Mob, Outkast, Usher Raymond.
I'm having a ball out here.
I don't know what heaven looks like, but this seems like a version of it.
You was lit, okay.
The legacy of Freaknik is black joy, black self-determination,
black love, black excellence, black enterprise.
But the legacy of Freaknik is also the ugly side.
It started to get a lot more out of control. People were coming by the masses.
What the hell just happened?
If you tried to bring back Freaknik, it wouldn't be what it was.
The streets, the people, the debauchery.
Things that I saw, insane.
We had no inclination to the depth that we were creating.
Them kids ain't know nothing about Freaknik.
Trust me, your mom and daddy got down.
Hola, my name is William. I'm with Film Snob Reviews. Hello, thanks for being here, guys. We appreciate you. Fellow EP Jermaine Dupri mentioned something in the interview, one of his interviews that I thought was really cool. So I wanted your guys' take on it. He said that the lasting legacy of Freaknik was one of creativity. But what else do you think is a lasting legacy of Freaknik in regards to the event and the city, how the way it molded the city of Atlanta?
Well, I think that in some ways it became sort of this black mecca for African Americans, whereas Harlem or maybe Los Angeles might have been that before. And I think that if you were a young business person, a young musician, if you're a young artist or whatever you were doing, you know, there's a lot of economics and hustle that went into Freaknik and people, businesses and entrepreneurialism. So you can, I think, track some of how the millennials of today or Gen Z are really business oriented came from that creative period. The 90s, you know, I'm biased, I'm from the 90s, but I think the 90s was the sort of one of the greatest cultural periods in the history of the United States, not just as a black person, but just culture and music. So the 90s and creativity and Freaknik, they're just sort of all married together.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to recognize that the legacies are complicated. And so the legacy of Freaknik is, you know, all the joy and the good, but it's also the negative. And that's, you know, that's any legacy that you look at. It's part of life. And so we wanted to make sure that we were capturing all of that and that all of that is part of Freaknik.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to have a little fun with this next question because this is pretty simple. I grew up in the 90s as well in Los Angeles. So you're right. This event would have never taken place in LA, for sure. Let me ask you guys, you talked about the 90s being a great decade. Who are our favorite artists from the 90s that we think would be great for a Freaknik revival concert?
I think we got a pretty good one tomorrow night. So with Luke and JD, but you know, as a person who lived through that era in a major way, you know, it would have been great to saw my boy Pac there. It would have been awesome. He obviously was at Freaknik in real life. Been good to see Chris, Biggie there, some of the people who lost their life, unfortunately, at that time. I mean, there's a lot of great artists, I think, from the 90s who could have, you know, maybe Kurt Cobain would have popped up and got it lit back in, yeah, he's a 90s icon.
I think being from the Bay, Too Short, looking back on it, Too Short really captured that essence of Freaknik. He was there, he was in Atlanta, and his music really captured that fun, that culture, the strip club, shake your booty culture. So, I mean, Too Short got to be there.
Shout out to Tasha. Yes.